Disclaimer: the information in this episode is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have a medical condition, please consult a medical practitioner. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My guest today is Allan Ting. Allan is a high-performance parenting coach, TEDx speaker, and author of the upcoming book titled Gen AI: Raising Determined, Resilient, and Happy Kids in the AI World. With expertise spanning neuroscience and behavioral psychology, Allan has inspired audiences across North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. He was raised by tiger parents, and while they did the best they could, that experience took a significant toll on his mental health. Over the past 2 decades, he's committed deeply to his own healing. A major turning point came when he discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. It accelerated his healing in a way he hadn't experienced before and helped him understand himself at a much deeper level. He is now on a mission to transform parenting worldwide by equipping families with the mindset, tools, and leadership skills needed to thrive in the modern era. Hi, Allan. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm really excited to dive into the work that you do, the healing journey. We have lots of ground to cover, but just to get a better understanding or grounding about some of the information, I was wondering if we could start off this conversation with you explaining what is a tiger parent?
A great question. For those of you who not been born in an Asian family, a tiger parent it's in a nutshell, it's like conditional love. If you do what I expect you to do and you do it, then you receive praise, you receive love, you receive appreciation and acceptance. So oftentimes what that means is you got to get 4.0. So there's a meme that's going on out there. It's pretty funny, with the grade A B C to F, right? A B C D. So you grew up in an Asian tiger parent family when A stands for average, B stands for below average, C stands for can't have dinner, D is don't come home,
No.
and then F is find new family. Joke aside, that's actually not too far from the truth. So when I was growing up, you got to get 4.0. That's the minimum. That's the bare minimum standard.
Right. And you can't get higher than 4.0. So the expectations are pretty high. And so it feels like, and I had to look this up to be honest, because though I understand high expectations coming from a South Asian family, and I've certainly experienced some of this, maybe not to the degree of by true definition of what a tiger parent is. But it was coined by a Yale professor named Amy Chugg in her 2011 book titled Battle Hymn of the Tiger. And it describes a parent, often of East Asian descent, who employs intense pressure, controlling techniques, and high expectations to drive children towards success, similar to the ferocity of a tiger. Like basically, it's pushing in academics, but also it can include sport or music. So, how did your parents push you? In what way were your parents, quote unquote,
They,
tiger parents?
yeah, it started more elaborate, more towards middle school, where this is back in the 80s, right? So if I were to get an A, I get $10 on my report card. So goes back to that traditional parenting, rewards and punishment, right? So the reward was if you for every A you get $10. So that really propelled me and wanted me to push harder and harder. So what happened is here's an arc of the story. So I was doing really well in middle school, like honor, I was getting 4.0s, all that good stuff. By the time I got into high school, the entire game changed because I started taking AP classes. I started doing all these. So my foundation was not set. So the grades I was getting was not A's anymore. I was getting B's and C. And meanwhile, I'm berating myself. I'm saying I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. No matter how much like the incentive was there, it was not achievable. because they're not achievable. Now my parents are like, especially my mom, and this is not coming from blame or shame, right?
Mhm.
This is just how they were taught, and they're trying their intent was for me to get better, but there's a big gap between what their intent is and what kids perceive. So what happened was I started berating myself like I'm not smart enough. Whatever I did, even I achieved, didn't count, and that took a huge mental toll on me. Right, I remember specifically in sophomore year in high school where we had to take one of the kind of like human health, where they talk about different like mental education, like mental health, things like that. And you had to draw a place where in your body where it hurts. I drew a big circle around my heart and I had nobody to communicate with. And part of me is I grew up as an empath, so I'm very connected to all my friends. When they run into challenges, the problems, relationship, parents at home, whatever, they all come talk to me, and I give them solid advice. I don't know where that came from. I just give them solid advice, right? Being able to connect with them. When I run into challenges, trouble with relationship, with school, I had nobody to talk to.
Mm.
The people I talked to were like special like relationship advice. I just got out of a relationship, for example, and my heart's broken, and my friends would say, "It is what it is. Go with the flow." What does that mean? It absolutely does nothing for me. So my friends couldn't connect with me. So I felt isolated. I felt alone. I felt distant. And that perpetuated in college, where by the senior year in college, it took a massive toll on my mental health that I planned everything out, how I was going to exit this world, everything out. And originally, I just thought I'm going to make a mess at home. I don't want to have my parents to see that. So at the time, I was living in San Francisco. So I figured I'll just jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, like have everything figured out. The only reason why I didn't, or actually two reasons, was number one, I know if I left, my mom would have killed herself too. And I couldn't bear the weight of that because that hurt me so much. And the second part was I finally had the courage to go talk to the college psychiatrist. And during the talk, the discussion was, I know in the future I'll be serving other people, I'll be helping other people because I just feel like this is my path. But how am I supposed to help other people when I can't help myself? So the psychiatrist took a breath and said, maybe you should help yourself first so you can help other people later. I
Great
took that
advice.
I took that golden nugget of wisdom. I went home, and that night it was like I stayed with that question for about until about 2:30 in the morning, and I found the answer. And the answer was, how am I supposed to connect with other people if I never felt the pain myself? You talk to a therapist, and this is not no knock on people who wants to help out, right? How are we supposed to help other people if we never went through the pain ourselves? We can say, "Oh yeah, I get you. I understand where you're coming from." But if you never felt like you're alone, you're isolated, you're deep in a dark hole that you feel like nobody can pull you out, how are you supposed to relate with other people if you never experienced it yourself? So that really catapulted my entire life's work from then to what I'm doing now.
So that was also in the 80s, right? And 90s, I want to say. And nobody was really talking about mental health at that time, right? And I recall, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 55. And, if I went through a difficult time, I myself didn't know who I could access, who I could talk to. There was definitely no social media resources that's available as it is now. Mental health was certainly something that no one mentioned. So I really commend you for seeking the help that you that you did with your school psychiatrist or psychologist. Um, but did they give you some suggestions on how to help yourself? I mean, just to say, the best thing to do is to help yourself first before you help others. I mean, that's a tall ask for someone without tools. And we didn't have tools at that time. We didn't know things like breath work, meditation, journaling. those weren't things that we necessarily understood as tools. So how are you on the path of healing your own self before you could help others? What did you do at that point?
Before I answer that question, I want to jump back really quick. So the other part, hallmark of Tiger Parents, is that mental health is considered a weakness. And when I say that, there's a difference between weakness versus disease, right? So weakness is like, oh, you're just not being strong enough. You're just pouting. You're just you just need to man man up. Stop
Just suck it
crying.
up, right?
Suck it
Like,
up, right? So for men, it's like suck it up. Like don't cry. Keep
be
going.
strong.
Be strong. For
Yeah,
women,
Right.
it's like, don't big girls don't cry. So
right.
you get it? So and what is depression? Depression, if you look at the word, is pressing all your feelings down. So all this feeling that comes like these big feelings like sadness, anxiety, and this is actually all the kids are going through now. It's actually not that much different. The more you push down, the more you don't talk about it, don't see it, ignore it. That's going to come back later in a
Mhm.
bigger way.
I always say what you suppress, your body will express.
Exactly. And with Dr. Joe's work, this is what we're exploring, right? Because if you've been to one of his live seminars, chances are you probably experience in the middle of the seminar, you would just hear, out of 3,000 people, just one random person goes, "Ah," full on like crying.
The screaming and the crying.
The
Yeah.
screaming, the crying is because they're releasing all that depressed feelings they had over years. And that years could be decades, 20, 30, 40 years
Hmm.
of releasing that. So to answer your question, going back is how do I do it? That really propelled me back into the self-help industry. So
Hmm.
part of it is I didn't grow up with silver spoons. Like even if I went to go see a therapist, I couldn't afford that. It was like even back then it was $100 an hour, and it was like I was making $5.25 an hour. I can't afford that. Somehow, I guess I would say grace or God intuition or something led me to maybe I should just pick up some self help books because I can
Right.
afford $15, right? I can afford $20, and that really propelled me on my journey into self help. And one of my favorite books that completely changed my life, completely changed directory of my life, uh, is book of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I started with that and implemented the frameworks. I learned it, kept on honing it, really built that foundation, and that really propelled me to the next level and the next level and the next level.
Right. And before we start getting into Dr. Joe's work and how it helped you, besides reading books, what modalities did you try when it was, financially feasible?
Um, being being an Asian family, we many of us value frugality, and what that means is a lot of stuff is just DIY. So especially, I want to address this because this is really important, especially when many of us come to believe that mental illness is a weakness. So just go to get over it. So what happened is when these courses come, for example, Dr. Joe's, it could be like $3,000, or I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, hence the hat. That could cost somewhere around $500 to $10,000 and more. And I'm like, $500? I would talk to my friends about it, right? $500? I'll teach you everything that you need to know about life for 250. So we discount this value of attending these seminars. Again, through God's grace, I had the luck that when I was working, our company had the tuition program. So what my next step was learning NLP, neuro linguistic programming. So back then, I remember the first seminar that I attended, like a 1 day, like a 3 hour seminar I attended. I really loved. It was an introduction to NLP. I really loved it. But
Hmm.
then The facilitator came out. If you're interested in this is back in 1990. No, it was 2000 maybe 3 or so, 2002. He said it's $2,000. $1,000. At the time I was unemployed, right? So I got laid off from .com. I can't afford that. Through God's grace, the company I was with, they had tuition reimbursement. So actually, aligned with Dr. Joe's work, it aligned with mine. So I set intent that I'm going to take this course. Somehow it's going to get paid. And sure enough, the tuition covered it. So I took NLP for 6 months, and I loved every single moment of it. And from that on, I saw the value of self help that they kept on learning. In Tony's language, it's called Kanai, constant and never ending improvement. So ever since then, on a path, I've been averaging taking at least one seminar a year. If not, really on average, I'm doing about 3 every single year.
Amazing. And during this time period, including college, how was this impacting you? You talked about your mental health struggles, but how was it showing up physically and in your relationships with yourself and with others?
It wasn't, because what I came to realize is that uh, my voice was not heard. So as the other, prominent thing about Tiger parents is that they always have the last say. So my parents, and this is not blame or shame, this is how they grew up, right? So whatever things I want to express, they didn't want to hear it. And that breaks the bond between the parent and the child, because the most important thing you can have for between a parent and a child is that relationship. And that relationship fundamentally is trust. Because if you break that trust, going back to Amy Tra's book, because I was reading it, I was going through it, and I'm like, I can tell the exactly reason why her daughter was doing the things that they did. But then at one point, why that bond was broken, that her daughter just, I think it was in France or it was in Germany, her daughter threw a wine glass at her, break the ground, broke glass on the ground. And from then on, I'm like, Mom, I ain't doing this crap anymore. I am not doing any of your piano practice or violin practice. This is it. We're done. I can tell you exactly when that trust broke, because all I see is pattern. So coming back is start understanding these patterns. When you start seeing these patterns, what's working and what's not working, and that's going to help you elevate your parenting skill sets.
Let's move on to Dr. Joe. And for those who don't know, Dr. Joe Dispenza is a chiropractor, author, and lecturer, and he's known for his work on mind body healing, neuroscience, and personal transformation, blending quantum physics with ancient wisdom to teach people how to change their reality through meditation and changing beliefs, stemming from his own recovery from a spinal injury. And Dr. Joe has retreats where he teaches this material, and he has books that he's published, and I'll leave a link to his website and information on how you can learn more. Allan, how did you come across Dr. Joe's work, and what was it about it that resonated with you?
That's a long story. So I'm going to condense it as much as I can. Um, if I can be vulnerable right now and hold space for me. So about a year ago, my wife comes to me and says, "We're done. We're done."
I'm so sorry.
I appreciate you holding space. And that propelled me into deeper self work. What I did was there was a specific, so you know how Dr. Joe's has Botec, so blessed of the energy centers. They're
The
like
meditation? Yes.
meditation. I think there are 12 of them, or I forget now, 13 or 14. So I picked my favorite one, which is Botec, blessed of the energy center, number 3. So that's attunement. So I did that consistently every single day for over 6 months, morning and afternoon, or morning and evening, and sometime in the afternoon, but at least twice a day. Through that process, I cried a lot. I screamed a lot. I took journaling, and I don't blame my ex-wife by any means because I still have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to grow. But one thing was very transparent was I feel like my voice is not heard. So this is the intergenerational trauma work that I've been working on. And before this podcast, we talked a little bit about it. So let's quickly define what intergenerational trauma is. It's stuff that uh, it's stuff that we blame our parents for their parents' screw ups. So the forcing, the authoritarian parenting, the things they push, it's generation after generation after generation. So my parents' voice were not heard, and that got passed down from their parents and their parents and their parents. So then the question is, who do we blame? Well, you can't really blame anybody. So the next best thing we can do is we can take control of our life, take control of our reign of our life. And how we do that is by understanding this is the challenge of the trauma that we've been passed over. So how do we resolve this? And let me share a quick story with you. So about a couple of years ago, my wife has a tendency had to park her car in the middle of our driveway. And then when I open up the garage and trying to pull the car out, I can't pull out because I got to move her car. So I figured, well, it's really not her fault because I didn't show her how I want to park the car. So one day she comes back home and I try to guide her like, hey, you should park more to the right so I can pull out. And she got it. And that went on for a couple of days, but then it reverted back to her old behavior. And then like, okay, well, it's maybe my fault that I didn't express my communication clearly. So when she came home, I parked the car specifically how I wanted it and show her like, can you do this? And the big reason why is if I pull out the car, I can either hit her car or I can hit my car and we scratch her car. It's just bad news, right? So she said she got it. A couple of days later, went back to the old habit. And that night I just lost it. I think it was my birthday or something. We're supposed to go celebrate at a sushi restaurant. So I just lost it. And it just I've told you specifically how to park this thing and you're not parking this thing, and just completely went off. And when we got to the restaurant and I'm in tears and the waitress comes over and try to order, I'm like, I'm really sorry. Give us a minute. And through this process, because I've done a lot of self-help work, I'm able to jump into different positions from my wife's perspective, from my perspective, from my kids' perspective, and trying to figure out what's going on. Why am I having this emotional attack, this trigger? And the answer I found was my voice was not heard. Because my voice was not heard, I started yelling. I started, screaming. I behaved badly. That was totally on me. I admit it. And it, because that stemmed from, I was able to trace back, that stemmed from my voice was not heard from my mother. And I get to go back and revisit that and heal that trauma through that process. So during the Boltec work, what I'm getting at is during these Boltec work, parts of our body remembers these negative energy, and we got to be able to clear them. So just knowing is not enough. I know the trauma. I know that my voice is not heard, but our body holds these memories. We still got to be able to release them. And this is where Dr. Joe's work is so powerful.
Part of yourself would you say that you changed in order to heal? Because Dr. Joe often talks about that in order to heal, we have to change.
It starts with understanding what is disease? What is a disease? So you hear enough cases, if you study enough about Dr. Joe's work or have heard of him, then you see all these people who healed themselves for terminal cancer, where the physicians gave up on them, and they're able to heal themselves, or they're able to grow back their thyroid or grow back their part of their intestines. How is it they're able to do that? is because fundamentally dis-ease, if you think about it, break down the word, is dis-ease. Dis-ease in the body. So how does disease gets born? Through mosquitoes. How do you raise mosquitoes? By still and dirty water. So think about it, our body is made of more than 80% of water. When our body is stagnant, when it's stuck, that forms disease. And how that happen is if when we're continuing to focus on negative emotions like sadness, anxiety, depression, anger, that lowers our frequency. So if you guys heard Dr. Joe enough, I know this is a repeat, but that what that really creates is a stagnation of your blood, of your energy, of your chi within your body, and that's how diseases form. That's how cancer is formed. So I realized that really quickly because for me, one of my top value is health. So I can sit there when during this divorce, I can sit there and blame everything about my ex-wife, how she screwed up my life and all that stuff. That wouldn't do me any good because now I'm just playing the victim role. So in order to happen, I got to change. I got to change my mindset. And when I say change, it's really not about change. It's about updating my mindset. What worked in the past isn't working now. So I got to change. I got to update that thought process.
And how did the feeling or experience of healing show up for you in your body and in your mind?
Everybody's different. Um, some people will get different messages. Some people will feel. So let's just talk about physiology, for example, for starter. So your body will start feeling lighter. You're feeling like you're more connected to the source. I don't know if you believe in God or the universe. So you'll feel more of that wholeness, that oneness, and you'll feel like more that it's no longer a duality. It's not love and hate. It's you started feeling that connectedness, that one source. For me, again, everybody's different. For me, is once I'm connected to that source, I get massive downloads. Not that I'm asking for it; it just gave me those downloads. So that could happen. I remember one thing specifically was I did the Botec in the morning, and then I went out for a mountain bike ride. I was in the forest. I was riding around, and through that instance, I was listening to music, and then I got this massive download from the divine that maybe my mom's a tiger mom. Again, not coming from blame or shame, is because of her insecurities. Because her intent is she's pushing me so hard is because she wants me to succeed, not because she wants me to feel that I'm not good enough, you're not smart enough, and always berating me, always criticizing me. So if there's one message coming from the Tiger Mom's book, she's got great intent. She's a very loving mom. I'll give her that. The execution part could be even better. Because what happened is there's difference between an intent and execution. So my mom, she's got the best intent, right? But the execution part, it makes us feeling different. Like, does she really love me? Or you question that, does she really love me, or is she really criticizing me? Because when you start criticizing, then the feeling of I am not enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not strong enough, or for women, it's typically I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not thin enough. So the feeling of I am not enough, because this is really important, because if I am not enough, these are the two biggest human fears. Fear number one is I am not enough. Because I am not enough, then I won't be loved.
Mm-hmm. So, how would you say your relationship with yourself has changed since you've healed?
A big part of that comes from being able to understand the different frequencies. Most people, again, I got into the anger trap, the anger and sadness. We call this the loop, the infinity loop. When you become angry, you become sad. When you become sad, you become angry. It goes over and over and over. So I quickly realized I was stuck in that loop and I needed to elevate myself into energy. One of the things was because growing up in a tiger parent family, I always feel like I always have to prove myself. Proving myself means I'm worth. Then I have worth because I'm able to get straight A's, because I'm able to get 4.0s, because I got on TEDx Talk, because I wrote a book, number one best-selling seller. Then I am worth being loved. Remember, two biggest human fears. I am not enough, then I won't be loved. Because I did all these things, then I am worthy of love, and then I am enough. And really come back, think of it as and through this process, I'm learning myself is how can I love myself even more? How
How
can
did
I be
your
worthy of love?
Yeah, how did your inner dialogue change throughout this process? And when did you realize you were shifting your inner dialogue?
It started when I started doing Botech work. And, I studied throughout this self-help journey of my own self-help journey. I studied with Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote the book, The Body Keeps a Score. I've studied with psychiatrists and psychologists who study with world-class uh, folks. And every single one of I felt that they're all on their journey. Some are more ahead, some are like at my level, some are still continuing to learn. So first thing I want to share with the audience is if you're on this journey, I recommend you not to compare yourself. Maybe somebody else is ahead, somebody's behind. This is your own journey. Because this journey will never stop. It never ends. This is what I saw in the long run. Because the question is like, when will our heart be healed? Because what happened is you work on something else will come up. You work on that, something else would come up. So, for example, I remember specifically when I was 14 years old, that moment where I feel like my mom wouldn't listen to me, and she completely blocked me out and just shut me down. So I had to go back and work on that. When I worked on that and healed my 14-year-old, something else came up. When I was 8 years old, my dad would hit me and yell at me and say I'm stupid. So, kind of give you a little more context is, and by the way, the psychiatrist now I was forgetting his name, but with the psychiatrist was studying with Dan Siegel. Uh, sorry, jump back in. When I was 8 years old, I came to the United States without speaking a word of English. I only knew A, B, and C. That was my extent of the alphabet. Yes and no, and I don't speak English. That's about the extent of my knowledge of English. So it was really tough transition when I was going through school, especially elementary school. And one day I picked up the book Curious George because I thought, hey, this monkey is kind of like me, very always getting into trouble, kind of misbehaves, and I can find my identity, right? So I brought this back home and hoping my dad would teach me how to read. And through this process, when he'll teach me the first time, maybe the second time or the third time, but if I mispronounce it, frequently I would get hit in the head or I get yelled at. Where I'm coming from is at age 8, kids don't know any better. Kids don't know what's going on. Now looking back as an adult, it's actually my dad's insecurities. Tiger Parents is really about the Amy Chua. It's all about her insecurity, her self-image, what a tiger mom, a prestigious mom from Harvard should be to raise prestigious kids. It was a feeling. This is the intergenerational trauma, right, that we're talking about. So you start connecting with each other. So it was my dad's insecurities of him feeling like he's inadequate. He's not learning fast enough. He's not smart enough, that he won't be loved. Fast forward a little bit. I know I'm jumping around the timeline a little bit. I got into Zen meditation back in 2002, and my dad and I used to meditate together. We used to go to a Buddhist monastery every single weekend. And coming back from the car ride, I got this download. I got this epiphany. I said, Dad, Can I ask you about grandpa? Because I don't really know my grandfather too well. How did grandpa taught you when you were growing up? He goes, you have no idea. He was forced, my dad would tell me the story, he was forced to read the entire book like this thick, and he got maybe like 4 hours to do it. And by the end of 4 hours, he's got to recite everything verbatim, word for word. If he doesn't, if he got one word wrong, he would have been punished or get no dinner until he memorizes everything. So the message I got was my parenting was a watered down version from his dad. Yes, I had dinner. Yes, I still got punished, but it wasn't as harsh. It was more of a watered down. So through that perspective, I'm switching different perspective now. I can see from his perspective how he was growing up, and through that process, I can learn how to forgive him, so that if you guys have kids, we don't want to pass this stuff down to our kids. And I always say, I'm going to digress a little bit when we come back. I always say our kids, I have this firm belief that our kids are our best teachers, because our kids going to show us these triggers that we have. And when those things shows up, that means we still got work to do. So long-winded way to answer back to your question is, how do we know when we're progressing? How do we know if we healed ourselves? Is I learned this from a friend of mine. Her guru once said, when we stop feeling the triggered or getting emotional with this distress, then we healed ourselves. Then we progress in spirituality. And I'll let that land for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Alan, how did life change for you after you healed? Like, what does life look like now?
For me, it gives me inspiration. It gives me more tools that can support people. If it also helps me understand people at a deeper layer, because when I first got into NLP, chances, and this is not a knock for people, right? So when we first started learning things like, oh, I can help people, I know how to change people, I know how to do this and do that, and there's a part of it is that we forgot about humanity. We forgot about compassion. It's about healing other people that fulfills our need of significance. And through this process, I came to realize is sometimes it's not about helping people to heal themselves. Sometimes it's just about holding space for them. One of the TED talk or TEDx talk I heard recently that was really powerful, where the gentleman talked about there was a study with this oncologist where these men were getting prostate cancers, and he would say like the patients would come like, oh doc, I have prostate cancer, what should I do? And he would evaluate them and say, basically, any age above this age, you should not have any procedures, because if you have those procedures, then chances are a lot more things are going to go wrong. So we're going to continue to monitor it and check it out, and chances are you'll live up to your 80s and nothing's going to happen. There's a big percentage of that. So then he gives that advice, and the patient goes home, and the very next day the patient calls like, doc, I want this procedure. I want to get my prostate removed. He's just dumbfounded, like, I just told you not to do this procedure. Why are you like, he just doesn't get it. And what he found was actually these three things, if I can share with the parents out there or listeners out there, is the three H's. Ever since then, I added fourth. But let's start with the top. Three H's. Number one. So when you're working with somebody, even as a friend, this is super powerful. When they come to you with challenges or problems and they're having a rough day, this goes with spouse too, right? Especially spouses when they come to you. So you can say things like, I'm going to offer you three H's. How can I help? If you want your voice to be heard, or do you want a hug? Give them that choice. Because what happened with most parents is, or most men, if you are been married, you know what I'm talking about as men. When your spouse, when your wife comes home and they're talking about their day and how horrible it was, what do we have a tendency to do? Go fix things. And when we fix things, we may have the best intent, but in their mind, they feel like we're criticizing them. They're not doing enough, right? Not enough. I won't be loved. Start seeing a pattern. So when you offer these three things, chances are like, honey, I just want your voice to be heard. I just want to talk about it. Okay. And you can do that with your kids too. The last H I want to add in is before the three H's, we need to get ourselves centered and rooted and grounded. This is where Dr. Joe's work is really important. Because when we're in an elevated emotion of love, of connection, of joy, of gratitude, then we get to see actually this other person is having a really bad day or start yelling at us or blaming at us. It's really not us. It's really them. Again, really important. It's not us. It's them. As much as it sounds like don't take this personally, this is the reason why we don't want to take this personally, because they're going through the chaos. They're going through all this stuff that's going on. It's not us. They're getting triggered. They're going through this emotional experience. We don't need to get sucked into them. The best thing we can do is hold space for them through the three H's. The last H is heart. We need to connect with ourselves, that we love ourselves. Because as cliche as the sound is, how do we spread love? So the analogy is we have a cup. When our cup of love is filled, that love overflows. Yes or no?
So
Right?
true.
When our cup is empty without love, we're constantly looking at filling it up. So I love how this podcast is going because it goes back into the original psychiatrist that told me, how are you supposed to help other people when you can't help yourself? That was my question. So maybe you should help yourself first before you help others. And what that means is love yourself first. Do the meditation.
Yeah, all very good advice. I love what you're saying, and I think many of us can relate. Myself personally, I know from my own grief journey after my mom transitioned, the only thing I wanted to do was be witnessed. And it was so hard for me to find that, just to have somebody listen, to hold space for me. Everyone was trying to fix the situation, try to just, take away the discomfort of the pain. And I didn't want to be fixed. I just wanted somebody to witness, and acknowledge what I was going through. And I think one of the reasons why I started this podcast was, well, if no one's going to listen to me, I'm going to talk into a microphone and just say what I need to say without being interrupted, without somebody trying to give me unsolicited advice and whatnot. And I always say the greatest thing someone can give me is their presence. That is the greatest gift that someone can give me. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, and thank you for sharing that. Alan, you say that you are a high performance parenting coach. Do you mind describing what you do, the services you provide, and what does that entail for parents?
Sure. A lot of parents that come to me, whether they have the kids have ADHD or they have opposite defined disorder behaviors. So basically, a lot of behaviors. They come to me and they're like they worry about their kids' future. They worry about their academics. They worry about like because for almost every single parent, what we really want is we want our kids to be better than us at some level because we want them to make sure that by the time we leave Earth, they're well self-sustained. So, but then the challenge is there's a big gap with going back to what we talked about. My dad, they have great intentions, but the gap is I feel like I'm never enough. In fact, if you guys know Tony Robbins, he's one of our greatest life strategists like ever lived. He coached presidents, celebrities, impacted over 100 million people across 165 different countries. His son recently wrote a blog post where his dad called him up and said, Jarek, I'm really sorry. I had some time to reflect what's going through in my life. Is that there are times where we are butting heads, and I was trying to push you. I was trying to, I am life strategist after all, right? So I can heal everybody. I can motivate everybody. Why can I motivate my son? And it's not fair for you because I've been holding myself for that highest standard for a very long time. I think many of us all hold very high level of standard for us for a very long time. That's why I'm getting emotional. And it's not fair. It's not fair. Not fair for his son, not fair for himself, not fair for me, not fair for the tiger parents. Because all we really want is love. All your kids ever want is love. Fernand, all you want after your mom passed is love.
Mhm.
And I believe we all deserve that. So this is a big part of my work to end intergenerational trauma, that we can achieve and help our kids to be successful and feeling love. It's not one or the other. That's the thing. It's not like they're not totally polarized. We can combine them together. This is what my book is about. This is my work is about. Through science, through evidence-based work, how do we get our kids to listen? How do we have that intimate connection that every single parent starved because of social media? Like there's so many ways our kids are getting pulled through AI, through social media algorithm, through all that stuff that I seen this day in, day out. One of the things I've done for the last 3 years is I volunteer every single year for about 7 days, what's called Global Youth Leadership Summit. This is where we bring 400 kids from all around 35 different countries, and we teach them about leadership. The reason why I'm sharing this story with you is because on day 3, there's something very impactful. The exercise we have the kids do called Walk of Truth. And 200 kids are divided within the courtyard. And if the questions like asked is, if you guys ever experience this, walk across the courtyard. And the question started with pretty, something simple like, I cheated on my homework or I cheated on my test. 20% give kids walk. I've been in a relationship, 20, 30% of walk. And fast forward, the question becomes deeper and deeper. How many of you uh, ever been in a car where somebody was driving with the influence of alcohol? No, this is between 14 and 16 years old. About 30% of them walked. And I looked at it like, we as caregiver, parents, educators, teachers, why are we not having this conversation? Then the last question is, how many of you ever thought about committing suicide? Not just thinking about it, have a written plan, ready to exit this world. On average of the 3 years, sometimes 60% of them walk, sometimes 80% of them walk, but I would safely say about 50%. Why are we not having this conversation? So again, this goes back to the big gap with this is our parents' expectations of our kids, and this is what the reality of what the kids go through. No doubt that we as parents, we have the best intent, but that intent is not flowing through. That execution of love is not flowing through our kids. They don't understand. The kids don't understand. And this is what Jared was talking about with his dad. And the beauty of that arc is the dad said, I'm sorry. I love you more than anything you can imagine. And I'm sorry for pushing you that way. I'm going to learn how to love you moving forward. And
Yeah,
this is
that's
what I
deep.
want to pass down with my kids. And hopefully this inspires your audience here to
Mhm.
love your kids more.
Yes, you say that Your journey has led you to a clear realization: parenting needs an upgrade. The world has changed, our children have changed, and the way we guide them must evolve as well. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
100%. Simply as is. A lot of things I get from parents is like, my kid is lazy, just want to be on Roblox all the time, just want to screen time. They don't want to do their homework. What it is the strategies. They haven't found the strategies to how to motivate their kids. And when I say motivate, it's not about motivation. It's about giving agency to our kids so that they can self-motivate themselves. Right? So if you think about it, I know once I bring it up, it's like, oh, Allan, this is really common sense. Why didn't nobody ever talk about this? So first question is, why are kids so glued, so addicted to games? Because it's fun. Because it's interesting. And you do fun and interesting, repeat it enough over and over and over, guess what? They're going to get addicted. Plus, they get rewards. You sign up to Roblox on Friday night, you get, whatever animals. I don't play, but my daughter plays. They get these massive rewards. It triggers their dopamine, the reward center. So they want to play more and more and more, and they go down this deep rabbit hole. What if we take that same framework and apply to parenting, to education? So the acronym I want to share with the parents out there is FIRE, FIRE. So think about it. How we, for some of us haven't been camping, or some of us have been camping. The analogy is, how do we start a fire? What's the first thing we need? We need a spark, right? So we need a match to create that spark. That spark is the fun. When you strike that match or you light that lighter, that's a spark that ignites their passion. Because when we're having fun, it also triggers the dopamine effect. And through that dopamine effect, what it really is it gets our kids from fight or flight mode into curiosity mode. And that brain is open. Their brain is able to absorb. So that old traditional way, when I was learning Curious George, right? When I was learning it and my dad would hit me, I was in flight or flight mode. I don't want to learn anymore. I mean, to this day, I'm still anchored into Curious George. I looked at it and like, it doesn't bother me anymore, but I don't really care for it because it just brings back so many memories of unhappiness. Had he made that fun, I would have loved reading more about it. So I'm going to quickly go through this framework and then I'll share with you how to apply it. Second one is interest. Because now the kids is having fun, the next virtual process cycle that goes up is now they're interested in it. They're interested in, more than interested in it, the more they want to do it, which is R stands for repeat. They want to repeat that fun and interesting experience over and over and over. So this is where Dr. Joe says neurons wire together, fires together, right? And then E stands for how do we help them and help elevate them? And how we do that is by encouragement. So E is encouragement. And there's a specific way to encourage your kids that it's written in my book. I'll share with you briefly, but if you want to dive in deeper, you can learn more about it. There's a way a lot of people say, I don't believe in encouragement because they'll get this big head. That's very, very typical of what Tiger Mom would say. If I compliment you or you getting a straight A's, then you'll get this big head, then you won't push yourself. That's a big myth. Yes, that's true, because when you praise based on identity, like you're so smart, you're so talented, you're so pretty, that gets into the mindset of what's called fixed mindset. Because the next time they take a test, and like an algebra test, and they fail, they're like, well, I don't really care because I'm already smart. This is not me. So they push away that identity. Versus what we want to praise on is their behavior. That test that you took, it was pretty hard, wasn't it? Yeah. So I applaud you for your hard work. Keep up the hard work. High five. One of the things that I want to instill in my kids, my daughter, was reading, because I believe leaders are readers. When my daughter Sienna was very, very young, when she was 1.5 years old, I want to instill that behavior into her. And how I did that was actually, again, she's my greatest teacher. Remember, I said that our kids are our greatest teachers. That's how I came up with the FIRE framework. So I would pick up a book and I would give her a book, like the kids' book, they're really thick and the pages are really thick with big letters. She doesn't know how to read yet. She doesn't know her alphabets. I just give it to her. And the moment she opens up the book, I would say, yay, right? We celebrate. And my daughter would look at me like, what's going on here? She's totally confused because we made it fun. And the second time I gave it to her, she opened it up and went to say, yay. We conditioned this over and over, right? Repeat, right? And she's starting getting it. So she associated opening a book, it was massive fun, massive interest. And then the third time I gave it to her, I purposely gave her to upside down. And she opened the book and I would still say, yay. But my wife is like, well, the book is upside down. Why would you still celebrate? The process of this starting a fire isn't about perfection. The process is about fun and interest. Even if she's holding the book upside down, it's okay because we're starting that process. This is where most parents mess up. Like, okay, Allan got the fun and interest down. They come in and criticize what they're doing wrong. The moment you do that, you kill all the sparks. Right? Just think about campfire. You need the spark, you need the tinder, you need the kindling, and you need the stick in order to get that fire to build. So this is a motivational process. You can't expect your kid to go read the very next day this thick book before you started creating the spark. So fast forward a little bit. Now she's in 5th grade, 2nd grade, and this is not. I'm not sharing this with you because how proud I am. I am very proud of her. I'm not sharing this with you because I'm trying to impress you. What I'm trying to share with you is how this process works. 2nd grade, she read like 95% of the Magic Treehouse books. 3rd grade, she read all the Harry Potter's books, all 8 series, including the Cursed Child. She read that through like 2 or 3 times. Remember, these books are like this thick, right? And to this day, we've been logging her books. She read at least more than 85 plus books that's at least this thick. And I'm not saying that to impress you. The part where this is so important, because going back again, leaders are readers. And I found in my life that the friends around me who were one of the smartest people in the world, they're active readers. Tony Robbins is an active reader. Joe Dispenza is an active reader. Every single one of them were active readers. So I want to give this edge to my kid. And whatever your child is at, whether it's 1.5, 1.5 years old or 10 years old or 15 years old, help them through this fire process. Make it interesting. Because what happened to me was, for a very long time, I hated reading. Even in high school, I hated reading. When it comes to Lord of the Rings, everybody enjoyed it. I hated it because I don't want to read. I just want to watch a movie. Give me the Cliff Notes version of that. But the reason why everything changed, because I had a need, I had leverage, and going through the college psychiatrist, I realized I needed to read books because I needed to be educated with self-help, and that really propelled me reading hundreds of books of self-help afterwards, and that was the reason why I started reading. So I want to instill this with your kid by just understanding the FIRE framework.
And would you mind quickly summarizing the acronym and what FIRE stands for?
Sure. FIRE again is fun. F stands for fun. I in FIRE stands for interest. R is repeat, this process over and over. And E is encourage.
Amazing. Allan, what would you say parents are often missing about their child's behavior, especially when it comes to kids labeled with ADHD?
Very good question. What's the difference between behavior and identity? Tough question, right? Some people would
Yeah,
say
I mean, I
behavior
was
is
like,
identity.
yeah, I
Identity is
was
behavior.
saying, yeah, you sent me into a bit of a brain cramp there. Like
Yeah, right.
behavior, well,
Chicken or the egg,
yeah,
egg or the chicken. So let's break this down. Why this is important. Once you understand this, it's going to open up so many dimensions of your parenting or behavior of other people so you can have a better understanding. The strongest force in the human will is your identity. So when I say a very caring mother, when I say caring mother, you already have in your image what that mother looks like. What does she do? What does she look like? How does she serve? Chances are she's cooking. Chances are she's very loving. Chances are she's very huggy. Did you tell your kids how much she love them? And I would say very protective father. We already have this image of this very strong masculine man. So these are identity. So we have to be consistent with what we form identity with. The problem with labeling our kids lazy, anxious, ADHD, that's a behavior. But when the kids listen that enough, repeat it over and over, that forms into identity. And they start building on identity on top of that. So at a Joe D's event, we have breaks, remember? So during breaks, we get a chance to connect with other participants. And there's this young woman I still remember to this day. She goes, because we started talking about what did I do? I work with parents with ADHD disorder. And she goes, I have ADHD. Is there any advice you can give me? So I asked her, you're in the room, right? You meditated for more than half an hour, right? I mean, I get it. Our thoughts goes in and out, but you were able to sit there for at least 15 minutes or at least 5 minutes. Yes or no? Be present. She's like, yeah. Who told you have ADHD? Because the definition of ADHD is you're jumping around like this. You can't sit still and you can't meditate. But she's like, I've been taught that all my life. My teachers, my parents, they've been taught all my life that I have ADHD. That forms into your identity. That's your behavior. You got to separate it out. So let me give you, I know this is very confusing. So let me give you a better story so that you understand. While I was at GYLS, the Global Youth Leadership Summit, the first time I was attending, I met this gentleman. He was about 30 something years old. The first moment you look at this person, you see this identity, like tattoo sleeves all around his arms, tattoos around his neck, wears his hat sideways. And you're like, I have this belief that I'm not here to judge anybody. But first impression, like, oh, this guy looks like a thug, They're a burly guy, short and stocky, like very gangsterish. But I know he's got a story. So I went up and started connecting with him and tried to understand his story. And he opened up and shared this beautiful story with me that I want to share with your audience about understanding behavior versus identity. He goes, Allan, when I was as young as I could remember, maybe like 2 or 3 years old, my father would always say, you're evil. You're evil. You're evil. He didn't know why. He'd just say, you're evil. And his father would lock him up in a dark closet for hours on straight. No food, no bathroom break. If he had to go to the bathroom, he just goes into the closet. And when he comes out, his father say, see, I told you you're evil. You're peeing, pooping in the closet. Now we know nowadays that's child abuse. So that's how he grew up. That's his behavior. Eventually he learned that I am evil. How do you know when your behavior or the identity is when you start saying I am? So Dr. Joe's work, you hear a lot of I ams. That tells me that you're at the identity level. So as now he's going to kindergarten, he's going through grade school. And what do evil kids do? They beat on other kids. They get into trouble because that's their identity. I'm an evil kid. This is exactly what evil kids do. I'm a troublemaker. Goes to the principal's office. So he gets rejected by his home. He gets rejected by the institution. And then right around age 13, 14, when he doesn't feel like, so let me take a step back. All kids ever want to do is they feel like they have a base, a home base. They feel like they need to belong. If home doesn't provide that secure base, they're going to look at from somewhere else. And what they did was he started looking to gangs. The gang members would say like, oh, your parents don't accept you. We love you. We accept you. Oh, yeah, your school doesn't accept you because you're a dumb kid. You're an evil kid. We accept you. In fact, do what we tell you to do. Go rob somebody. Go carjack. Go steal their stereo. We love you for that. We accept you for that. Number two biggest human fears. I am not enough. I am not loved. For once in his life, he felt enough because you put a gun at somebody's forehead, you're significant. That you are enough. You're connected. And then that's how he grew up like for the next 15, 16 years. So I'm really curious. So I asked him, what changed? What made you get out of gang? Well, Allan, I got incarcerated like 4 or 5 times. I was thrown in jail. But that didn't stop me. What stopped me was there was a heist I was in. I was carjacking somebody, and right in front, my brother, gangster brother, not pure blood, not real blood, right? My brother got shot and killed. And that gave me perspective in life. Is this what I really want to do? Because I don't see a future. Really don't. And then he started thinking back like, well, I'm doing all these biddings for the gang leaders. What's in it for me? Especially if I put my life on them. So notice how, recap really quick, notice how the father labeled him, the behavior as evil. He had adapted into identity that I am an evil kid. So this is what evil kids do. You start doing all the bidding for all the gangsters. That's really the process. What's interesting enough is, I tie this back into Dr. Joe's. I was talking to this lady who is a counselor that works at the Colorado State Prison. She said, Allan, you know that story that you told me? That's like 99% of the story I hear from the inmates. Wow, that's really interesting. Because going back, kids need to feel like they need to have a secure home. If they don't have a secure home called home base, this goes back into attachment theory, anxiety, attachment, right? So I'm not going to go into detail because that's like another whole hours. So talk about Dan Siegel's attachment theories. So this is why identity and behavior, because behavior reinforces identity, and identity reinforces behavior. It goes round and around and around and around. So that's why ADHD, don't ever call your kids have ADHD. Don't ever tell them that they're lazy, because that just reinforces the behavior. In fact, I'm going to go on a tangent to come back, because the next question is, well, how do we get labeled ADHD in the first place? Well, if you remember, ADHD, it wasn't ADHD to begin with. It was ADD. And then it got hyper disorder. They added the H. When you and I were growing up, there's no ADHD conditioning. One of the things I was talking to Dr. Sylvana Coco about was how this term all came about was insurance company. So the parents would take the kids to go see a psychologist or psychiatrist, right? So depending on if you want to get them drugs or not. And then they have to build a medical insurance company, but they can't just say, my kids is just hyper. They got to come up with a term for it so they can build the insurance company so the psychologist or psychiatrist can get paid, right? So that's how they came up with the current term. It's for billing reasons. But the challenge with that is the moment we place that in behavior unknowingly into identity, of course they're going to have ADHD behaviors, because So neurons wired together fires together.
Mm-hmm.
So now they have this belief system like, oh, I just have ADHD. There's nothing I can do to change. When in fact, it's really just their behavior. They can change. They have the neuroplasticity to change around it. And this is where Dr. Joe's work is so powerful, because now we get into the neuroplasticity part, plasticity part, and also part of our chakras or energy centers to clear that memory out.
Alan, I work as a physiotherapist, and oftentimes I have children as patients. And the the common thread that I see in a lot of parents today with many children is that they just feel overwhelmed. There's so much going on, and many of them are struggling as parents. So if there's as a parenting coach, is there any advice that you would offer to a parent that's feeling overwhelmed or, you know, having difficulties with managing, the AI world and how that's being introduced into their children's lives? What's one thing that they could do right now to make this introduction into the AI world, I guess, more less stressful or less overwhelming?
There are really two parts, because in order to effectively answer your question, it's really got to come from two parts. We'll look at the parents first, and we'll look at the children first. There's a term called mental load. A lot of parents I work with, they have this mental load. Like, this is how their typical day looks like. They get up in the morning, make sure the kids are brushing their teeth, get dressed, and hurry them out the door, make sure their homework is in their backpack. And then they, drop up the kids off at school. They got to go to work on their projects. Then they got to go pick up their kids, make sure their lunch is delivered, or they make the lunch beforehand. Then they got to take them to soccer practice, and then make sure they do the homework. And meanwhile, they got to get back on the meeting. So where I'm getting at is they're way overloaded with all these to do things. That's the mental load. And Dr. Joe's language is, remember, he was drawing that chart, right? How are you going to change your future if you're constantly living in the past? If you're always mentally loaded with all these tasks, how are you going to have creative space to free up the space to change your future or create the life that you want? Most people are like, the most parents I talk to are like, I can barely keep my head above the water. Well, there's a reason for that, because you kept on working on the past. You focus on the things that in Stephen Covey's language is the 4 quadrant. You're working on a not urgent and not important quadrant. Time management. It's really about time management. So clear up your calendar, group your activities together, free up your time so that you don't go into insanity. So what happens when parents are so overwhelmed? What do? I don't have time for my kids. So what do? They give them their phone. They give them their iPad. Here, go binge on whatever. So get out my hair, because I'm already like stressing out during their day. And then now they're asking their kids to go do things like do their homework, and the kids don't want to do it, and they get upset. Again, this is not coming blame or shame. The parents created that paradigm. I see this all the time. I promise you, go to a restaurant, go sit down, parents with kids. What do? First thing they do, they sit down, they look at the menu. Next thing you know, they give their kids their phone. And the kids is like this. The parents cause that behavior. That behavior needs to change. And why the kids have so much anxieties depending on different age group, right? So you got the birth to 3, and then 3 to 7 and 12, et cetera, and the teenagers, because they've been conditioned on their phone. Why these kids have so much anxieties is because the kids never had a moment to go what's called DMN, go into default mode network. What that default mode network is, let them be bored. Yeah, they might scream and shout, let them be bored. Don't occupy every single minute of their day to something to do. Studies have shown that, science have shown that. When you do that, it makes them more dumb. We need to open that space, and it starts with you. That's why I'm talking about 2 points. It starts with you. You got to be open up your space. Everybody's got 5 minutes and then 24 hours. Everybody. I don't care how busy you are. Even if you're a president or Tony Robbins, The more busy you are, the more you got to meditate because it creates that space that opens up for creativity. Goes back in the default mode network. Let your kids be bored. So in my instance, like, Dad, I'm bored. Go figure it out. The boundaries are no games, no electronics. Go figure it out.
And that's what we did when we were kids, right? And from the perspective of as a physiotherapist in my clinical practice, it has drastically changed since increased screen time. And I'm seeing so many issues of people with neck and shoulder and wrist pain, postural related issues. And my patient load is getting younger and younger. Currently, my youngest patient with postural issues because of device usage is
Mm,
9 years old. Like they're
mm,
spending hours on their devices. And it's not just kids, I adults too. I recently had a patient that said they were on their device for about 9 hours a day on weekends, 5 hours during the week, watching Netflix, using their phone in their beds. So it's dramatically changed a lot of the things that I'm treating and dealing with today from that perspective alone. Um, I want to just start wrapping things up here with a quote from you, and that is: as parents, caregivers, and educators, we must become more aware, more present, and more proactive in supporting our children's mental and emotional well being. I share this not just as a perspective, but as a responsibility. The book is titled Gen AI: Raising Determined, Resilient, and Happy Kids in the AI World. Allan, when and where will this book be available?
That's a great question. I'm on the fourth iteration of the book. What you can do right now is get on the waiting list. And if it's okay with me sharing the URL to the audience, is
Absolutely.
gen-aibook.com. So gen-aibook.com. When you sign up to be part of the wait list, you'll get notified like the upcoming what's when the book is coming out. When you join that list, you're also going to get a free tool, the 12 best AI tools for kids, depending on their age, so that they can get into the age. Here's the thing, parents, I want you guys to remember, because a lot of parents are right now like, what's going on in AI? There's so many uncertainties. If you guys know enough about AI, it's really disrupting our entire industry. All the white collar jobs, chances are they're going to be eliminated by at least 80%. So the accountant, the attorney, the developers, the engineers, you can just do that. AI literally, it takes weeks or months for a software project to be built. Claude Claude can do it in like less than 3 hours, less than a couple of minutes. It's just simple like that. So what I'm trying to share with you, the parents, write this down. AI will not replace jobs. Kids that know AI will. So this is what this book is about. How do we teach our kids resilience and determination and combine it with happiness? So how can we really have it all? Not just, hey, we want to make sure my kids are successful, but how do we raise happy kids as well, all combined together in a book?
Thank you for putting this book out into this world. Thank you for putting this conversation out into this world. I want to thank you for your vulnerability, your honesty, and your authenticity. There's a lot of takeaway messages in what you've shared. I so appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. Please stay in touch and please come back to the show again soon. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And the other part is a big part of my mission is going back to our beginning of conversation is to help end intergenerational trauma. So 50% of this proceed of this book will be donated to youth leadership programs, whether it's United States or Africa or Europe or human sex trafficking. So I'm all about providing enablement to parents and really transforming the world. And all of us, I can't do this alone. So if you guys are interested, please join me on my mission. I love your support, and let's do this all together.
And I will have the link in the description for anyone who's looking for the book. So I'll make it available to them as well. Thank you so much, Allan.
Thank you.